Hello, everyone. Welcome to the post-trade deadline edition of the Bandwagon Hockey Podcast. This is episode 12. Ryan and I here coming at you about 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The deadline was about an hour ago. We've had a couple trades trickle in on what was a weak deadline day. Ryan had the day off because Halifax doesn't know how to deal with snow. How was it? Did you watch deadline all day or what? What'd you do?
Oh yeah, my ass was parked on the couch. I was still technically looking out for emails and doing a few things on the side, but it was nice to kind of have the day off to focus on a little bit more than I thought I was going to.
That's good to hear. Not much of a show today though.
No,
have they?
It's not like it mattered.
Have they given the final tally for how many trades happened today? I know it was like 7 going into 3 o'clock.
Believe it or not, I think we've actually passed one of the years in like the last 3 to 5 years, and I think it's up to 18 or 19 now. But like, there's a good amount of minor league trades and like
okay, I was just about to mention
13 forward trades.
As we were sort of like getting ready to start recording, I was reading through them, and one of them said like some guy like named like Guidol for a guy named Blind, like literally just two nobodies from the AHL switching teams. I'm like, how do teams even do that? Like, how do you
like? I just got a notification that the Rangers are acquiring someone named Wyatt Kalynuk from the Canucks for future considerations. Like, sure.
Yeah, okay.
That counts.
So
I think that's trade number 19.
That shouldn't count for the trade deadline tracker. It should be NHL trades, but anyway. TSN likes to pump their numbers. All right. So the way we did this last year was brutal. I went back and listened to it. It was a bad listen. I think it was our second episode, maybe second or third episode. And it's been a year, which is kind of crazy. But so this time around, we've got cap friendly open. We've got the date range for trades within the last 7 days, 10 days, whatever. And we're basically going to go team by team, assigning winners, losers, skipping the teams that didn't matter. And we're going to try to make it a little bit quicker, a little bit more entertaining, quick hitters on trades. So yeah, Ryan, unless you have anything to add, we can just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's get rolling.
Good to go. All right, team number 1 out of 32, we've got the Anaheim Ducks, who actually just sent John Klingberg to the Minnesota Wild, which doesn't appear to be showing up on Cap Friendly right now, which is kind of hilarious. It had me scrambling a little bit there because it quite literally just dropped about 15 minutes ago. So Cap Friendly is working on that. They only got a 4th-round pick. I don't even know if the other guys were prospects or if they were just salary. I don't know. Do you know, Ryan?
Yeah, I have the full trade here. It's a 4th-round pick in 2025, Andres Schuster, and the rights to someone named Nestorenko. Yeah. So I'm assuming that's some sort of young player, but
okay. And Schuster's not a young player. He's like an AHL guy. Like, he used to play for Tampa. No. So,
and the Ducks are retaining half of Klingberg's salary.
Right. Wow. Like, it's crazy that, like, what a terrible experiment in Anaheim. I feel bad for John Klingberg. He rejected like $50 million from Dallas like 2 off seasons ago, and thinking he'd cash out in free agency. Takes a 1-year deal in Anaheim to try to like bring back some market value and hit free agency big this summer, and then B, Anaheim try to recuperate an asset or two for the guy, and they get absolutely nothing. 4th-round pick for what has, to paraphrase, the worst defensive player on the worst defensive team of the Cap era. And so, yeah, it's just been that kind of year for John Klingberg. Anaheim also pulling off a semi-minor, but I don't know, you'd know the names involved if you're listening to this show. Brock McGinn coming from Pittsburgh to Anaheim, along with a 3rd-round pick next draft 2024 in exchange for Dmitry Kulikov at 50% retained. Not a really important one there. We'll get to Pittsburgh later. For any Pittsburgh fans out there, I kind of feel bad for you. Not much else to ride home about Anaheim.
There's one more I want to bring up, and that's just Henry Thurn.
I was about to mention that one.
I think it was earlier this week. I think he was a former, I don't even remember what round pick, but he's a prospect who's currently at Harvard, I believe. And he's the next in the line of a couple Harvard prospects over the years now who have kind of forced their way out of their organizations. So they were kind of forced to trade him because he didn't want to sign with them. So they got a 3rd-round pick in return. So overall, not a great deadline for Anaheim. They did not get a lot back for their UFAs, and they were forced to sell on a young player.
So Henry Thrun, actually, just for whoever's wondering, has 26 points in 28 games as a defenseman this year at Harvard. He's 21 years old, drafted in the 4th round in 2019. His rights were dealt to San Jose in exchange for a 3rd-rounder next season. So honestly, probably a decent get for Anaheim, considering it. Like, you only really trade guys like that when they have no intention of signing with you. Getting a 3rd-round pick for something like that, not the worst they could have done. All right, moving on. One of the big sellers of the deadline, although they didn't really have a ton to talk about. Actually, you know what? This conversation is not going to surround the trades they made necessarily. It's going to surround the joke of a cap situation that is actually going down in Arizona right now. We just released an episode about the Jacob Chychrun trade, so we're more or less going to skip Arizona and Ottawa today. But something that we didn't get to yesterday because it was a Jacob Chychrun specific pod was the Arizona Coyotes acquiring Jacob Voracek from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for nothing. John Gillies, which I would imagine is just for contract purposes because you can only have 50 contracts. Arizona gets a 6th-rounder. Basically, Arizona did this because most of did we talk about this a little bit on the Chychrun deal?
Yeah, briefly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get back into it because we didn't get to rant about it. Basically, Arizona is acquiring an $8.25 million cap hit so they can hit the floor next year, and they're not going to pay almost any of it because it's covered by insurance. Because Jacob Voracek likely will not play at all for the rest of his career, and a lot of people aren't happy with it because the NHL sent out a memo saying if you acquire a guy like Monahan, or if you acquire a guy like, I don't know, who's an injured guy that could have been traded that wasn't. But anyway, a guy like Sean Monahan, who no one knows if he's going to play, basically the NHL was like, if you go trade for that guy and then immediately throw him on LTIR and then go get another guy, we're going to investigate. Like, we're going to be in your ass because we don't want that going on. Meanwhile...
So I'll just quickly interject. Like, a good example of that was, and we'll get to this team a lot later, but the Wild acquired Gustav Nyquist a few days ago, and he is currently injured. Some people thought he may be out for the rest of the year, and questioned this one hardcore if it went against the league's memo that they put out. But it came out afterwards that he's very much expected to return today, which is why it was ruled legal. So that it's just. Teams are kind of playing with the memo a little bit, and obviously Arizona, I don't know how this doesn't fall under what the league warned about.
The thing that pisses me off so much, well, it's because Arizona's Gary Bettman's little pet. This is the thing, is the NHL doesn't like it when teams spend to win, but they love that Arizona's spending enough to lose because they just want Arizona. They're just like, you know what? If you guys are going to acquire injured players just so that you can go over the cap, you're not allowed to do that. Slap on the wrist. But we're not going to acknowledge the team that is genuinely buying players who cannot play so that they can actively feel like ice a worse hockey team. Now, all of a sudden, that's $8.25 million of players that they don't have to go and put on their roster. They can just stash him on IR, have it count towards their cap hit, and go pay some minimum AHL guys so that they can keep on losing.
Yeah, I think they're currently at 56% of their cap or something like that is either dead money, cap retains, or
LTIR.
LTIR, yeah. Those three things account for 56% of their cap right now.
Which is fucking
ridiculous.
Disgusting. And this is a floor team. This is a team that's at the floor. Yeah. That means that their actual roster, the players on the ice, maybe combined for less than $30 million?
Yeah, you think about it, 56% and they're at the floor. Yeah. What the floor is 62 or something like that. I
am going to Arizona.
Yeah, they would just be 30 million. It's crazy.
Arizona's cap friendly is hilarious. Their highest paid defenseman right now is $2.5 million. They've got 3 defensemen making under $1 million, and their 2 other defensemen are making about 1.2 and 1.5. They've got Keller, Schmaltz, and Krause are the only guys making above 4. Everyone else is making 3 or less, including 6 guys under $2 million. Their goalies have a combined cap hit of 3.5. So in total, on their roster of healthy players, they have $31 million towards their forwards, $7.8 million to their defense, and 3.5 towards their goalies, which comes in a little higher than what we kind of just did in our head. So I'm not sure about the math there. I saw the 56% number just like you did.
Yeah.
So maybe it was more referring to next year's cap.
Maybe, yeah.
Because they do have a little bit of money coming off the books. But anyway, just a comical amount of money that is just not going onto the ice for the Arizona Coyotes. And it is baffling that the NHL just doesn't care. They would rather see teams... This is going to be an issue in the next CBA. They need to get rid of like LTIR contracts being tradable.
Okay, sure. Discussion for another day.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll move on. All right. Next up, Arizona Coyotes. We are Atlanta Flames, Atlanta Thrashers, Boston Bruins are the next team up. For some reason, Cap Friendly has the Atlanta teams as an option for trades.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't see that on the mobile version.
They've also got like Hartford, Quebec.
Oh, they probably have like archives.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And okay, so Boston Bruins, huge winners at this deadline. They pick up Tyler Bertuzzi yesterday from Detroit in exchange for a first next year and a fourth in 2025. The first rounder is top 10 protected. It becomes unprotected in 2025. They also picked up Shane Bowers from Colorado, like a former Sens prospect, was a big piece in the Matt Duchene trade way back when.
First round pick.
They also got Hathaway and Orloff from the Capitals. We've gone over these trades on a previous pod, so we won't necessarily go in on those ones. The big get since we last talked is obviously Bertuzzi, arguably the biggest acquisition of their deadline. Kind of ridiculous that this team added a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi, given sort of what they had already done, the fact that people really did think they were done, and where they are in the standings, adding a guy like Bertuzzi is just insane.
Yeah, I absolutely love their deadline because there's only a few teams that I think should really be absolutely all in, and Boston is absolutely one of those teams. With the aging core they have, like who knows if they're ever going to have, well, this is already a historical year. Not many teams have ever had a year like this, but who knows if they're ever going to have a team that's going to be so dominant like this again. So I have no problem with them going all in and doubling down on Tyler Bertuzzi after they did the Orlov and Hathaway trade too. It just makes them that much stronger, and it doesn't look like it's hindered them at all. Like Orlov is on fire. Yeah. Have you seen the numbers he's put up?
It looks insane in Boston. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they just hit 101 points last night.
Fastest team to hit 100
ever
points.
To hit 100 points. Yeah. So they're doing everything right. Huge winners, in my opinion.
I don't really like. We'd have to talk about it later. They put Hall on LTIR and they put Foligno on LTIR to make the room.
That's the other
could be interesting.
Conversation.
See if those are
might be pulling a Kucherov
legitimate there. So maybe a different topic for another day. But Boston, huge winners. The rich get richer. They are on seems as though they are on a sort of crash course with the Carolina Hurricanes for the Eastern Conference Final. If that even, they just might be on a crash course for the Cup. Who knows? Who knows is going to stop Boston? Moving on, Buffalo didn't do much. They could have done a lot. They had like some stupid like $80 million in deadline cap space. Didn't really use any of it. For some reason, they traded a second rounder and a fifth for Jordan Greenway because that's a guy that Minnesota's been looking to move for a while. I don't actually know if he's that productive of a player. I know he hits people. He's big. More of a bottom six guy, though. So $3 million is probably a little bit more than I'd be willing to pay a guy like that. But hey, when you've got $78 million in deadline cap space, maybe you can afford to be a little lenient with it.
Yeah, I think his attractiveness is that he's a massive body who's a really good skater. He just hasn't really been able to find the scoring touch, which is the same with a lot of big bodies, right?
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Buffalo had like 4 second-rounders anyway, so they were able to just sort of throw one.
Why not?
Throw
it's
one.
Kind of like Ottawa.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago, throwing one at Stefan and Murray, which were dumb.
Yeah.
But another day.
Kind of just Kevin Adams throwing a bone to a team that's probably overachieving. Maybe not overachieving because they're a great team, but they've arrived to the scene a little bit sooner than expected. So it seems like maybe Kevin Adams rewarding them for doing so. How would you describe Buffalo's deadline? Win, loss, or sort of just neutral? Not really terribly.
So meh.
Yeah, it's
unbelievably meh.
They could have done something big. I think they might be in for something big in the offseason. That'll be an interesting team to watch.
Like one other interesting thing they kind of did is they shipped off Eric Portillo to the Los Angeles Kings, one of their $5 billion goalie prospects.
Yeah.
So just something to mention.
Oh, they moved
but that's
Portillo
pretty much
to
it.
the Kings? I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
For what? Oh, a third. Okay.
2 days ago for a third.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. All right, moving on to Calgary. Truly the most boring team, I would say, regarding the deadline. Sorry, Audie. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, he was tweeting like 2 days ago that they were the only team yet to make a trade, and they only made like 2 today, and they're both unbelievably boring.
They get Dryden Hunt from the Leafs for something named a Radim Zohorna, and they got...
Oh, in this trade is so funny.
Oh, yeah. So they traded Brett Ritchie and Connor Mackey for Nick Ritchie and Troy Stetcher.
And the Arizona Coyotes literally just tweeted out that this is the first trade in NHL history that brothers got traded for each other.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's honestly more funny that Calgary picked up Nick Ritchie, but like...
Oh, it's hilarious. It's so funny.
Very funny. And I remember Audie mentioned that Connor Mackey just like completely just not a good player at all. So
yeah,
I don't really get why Arizona did this. I guess because, I don't know, maybe they think Mackey is something, or just to shed cap because that's what they've been doing. Anyway.
Yeah, you get rid of money for the rest of the year and you get back. Like, is Brett younger than Nick? I don't know. But like Connor Mackey's obviously the younger player. And I would guess that Brett's the younger one too, but
I don't know. Boring deadline for the Flames. Okay.
Yeah.
Hurricanes could have done something massive. We're in on all the big names leading up to the deadline. Ultimately, I think they have a sneaky good deadline. They get Jesse Puljujärvi pretty much for free just because they had the space. And you just know Jesse Puljujärvi is about to go muck it up in Carolina.
Like, they didn't make a big splash like they could have, but it's extremely effective, like almost everything their front office does.
Yeah. And they get Shane Gostisbehere from Arizona in exchange for a third-round pick that's so far off in the future that your kids won't even remember that it was a pick. 2026 third-rounder. Arizona sort of diversifying their asset chest instead of like sort of putting all their eggs into one draft. They spread it out a little bit. Don't mind it from them. Thought they'd maybe get a little bit more for Gostisbehere, but whatever. Carolina, he's going to be a solid sort of replacement for D'Angelo, which I think they've more or less struggled with this year. I know Brent Burns has been awesome, but I don't necessarily know that they've had someone on that second power play unit, so Gostisbehere will probably step in there, sort of play a third pairing / second pairing offensive role for them. But no, I love the Puljujärvi fit in Carolina. I really hope that he like finds a home there and they keep him there long term. He's buddies with Aho. They're like,
I've been saying like, well, selfishly as a Sens fan, I've been like loosely saying I've been wanting Jesse for a long time, but it's always made way too much sense for the Carolina Hurricanes because they're just the Finnish army of the NHL too.
They are truly the Finnish army of the NHL. All right, moving on. Chicago Blackhawks. If anyone hasn't seen their roster post-deadline, go take a look. And please tweet at us how many players' names you recognize. I think I recognized 4, maybe 5 or 6. I very much skimmed it, but it is crazy. It is actually baffling. They finally traded Max Domi to Dallas in exchange for Anton Khudobin to cancel out salary and a 2025 second rounder, sort of following that Arizona diversifying their picks, spreading them out sort of approach to the horde of draft picks that they have. And then they also, I think we mentioned Kane on the last pod. I can't remember if that trade happened. But I'm assuming everyone is aware they finally traded Patrick Kane to the Rangers after a few days of cap shenanigans. They get a conditional first, which is actually surprising. I thought they were going to get a lot less than that. Oh no, sorry. The protections are weird, but basically it could become a first. Ryan, do you have a better idea of the protections?
Yeah. So it's a second right now, and it can become a first if they make the Eastern Conference Final in this year or next year, I think.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, so it could be a first. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
But it's essentially a second and a fourth. I know that because people were making all sorts of jokes that they got as much for Kane as they got for taking Zaitsev.
Yeah, it's essentially a second and a fourth, but the second actually has a legitimate chance of becoming a first because like the Rangers,
because they can get to the Eastern
Conference, are a good ass team who also got to the Eastern Conference Final last year. All right, moving on to the Colorado Avalanche. They were in on pretty much every potential second line center that you could possibly think of. At the end of it, they reunite with Jack Johnson, which was quite the day on Twitter. People had some fun with that. They also picked up Lars Eller in exchange for a 2025 second from Washington. Lars Eller probably slots into that second line center role, pushes Newhook down. He's not really what he used to be, but he's got lots of playoff experience in his years between sort of Montreal and Washington. So I don't know, decent get, I guess, for Colorado, but maybe probably was looking for them to do something a little bigger. I think all they really need is Landeskog to come back, and they'll be fine. But the defending champs sort of keep things low-key at the deadline.
Yeah, pretty much stamp out.
Columbus. Oh, here's a big one. So Columbus picks up Jonathan Quick. That is correct. Los Angeles Kings goalie Jonathan Quick, a conditional first-round pick that becomes a second in 2023 and a second in 2024 if the Kings miss the playoffs, which they likely will not. So it's probably going to be a first. And a 2024 third in exchange for Korpisalo and Gavrikov. This one was shocking not because of sort of the assets going either way. It's kind of a decent trade for both teams. But Jonathan Quick being dumped by the Kings was shocking.
Yeah, it was like nobody could see it coming, and there was all sorts of reports like immediately after the trade came out that Quick was pissed off.
Yeah.
And as he should be. Like, he wins 2 cups with the franchise. He makes it almost all the way through a 10-year contract and then gets dumped at the deadline as just part of...
To match cap with a last place team.
Yeah, to match cap. Yeah.
It's crazy. I've never seen... Like, I don't know if you can think of one, but I can't remember a franchise icon being dumped in a trade like that.
No.
Franchise icons get traded. It happens all the time, but they don't get dumped. So very surprising. No. I wonder how the relationship is there especially because Jonathan Quick is coming down the stretch of his career. That's a guy who could have his number retired someday. He's got rings, going to be interesting. They just started honoring that group too. Like they just retired Dustin Brown's number and I don't know, man. Weird. Weird. The NHL stays NHLing. They also pick up a 5th round pick in 2023 for Nyquist. They ended up getting Michael Hutchinson in a 7th for Jonathan Quick, who was rerouted to Vegas. We'll get to that later. They also, for all the slack Arizona picked up for acquiring Voracek's contract, that was a really smart move by Columbus just to get rid of it.
Great move.
Because Columbus is a team that's probably going to look to sort of rebuild on the fly here. You don't want to waste too much of Johnny Gaudreau's prime, especially if you probably have a top 3, top 5 pick coming in the summer. So all of a sudden you open up 8.25 in cap space to try to fill some holes on this roster. They got a lot of prospects coming. Some good moves for Columbus. I don't mind it. Getting a first.
Yeah, it's just tidy.
Yeah.
Right?
Getting that first for Gavrikov, I like. Although I think a lot of the value in that trade, I think, is more so on the side of Korpisalo, who's having a solid year.
Yeah, they really wanted to get a first for Gavrikov, and so to get that, they kind of had to package them together. Yeah. I think ideally they wanted to get separate returns, but you think about it, like a first for Gavrikov, a third for Korpisalo, it's not the end of the world. I think that's a pretty decent return.
Yeah, it's solid. I would even lean towards it being a first for. No, you're right. You had it right. All right, Dallas. Another quiet deadline for one of the sort of elite teams in the league. They get Max Domi and Dadonov from Montreal. Max Domi from Chicago. We already gave the details there. They send Gurionov to Montreal. I think we covered this trade on the last pod. Basically, Dallas gets some forward depth, not a whole lot else. They give up a pick and a struggling young forward in Gurionov. I don't know. They were a team that's like Merrick. I knew Jeff Merrick really thought they were going to do something big. I don't really know that they had the flexibility to do something big, though.
No, they didn't really, but what they did do, I thought was really effective still. Like, they did ship off Gurionov. If he does bounce back into a nice player, oh well. But they're kind of going for it now. Dadonov, he hasn't really been an effective player recently, but he's come into Dallas, and I think he's already scored at least 2 goals, if I'm not wrong. So he's having some success. I think he's in the top 6 too, if I'm not wrong. They're putting him into a place to succeed.
Yeah.
And then I like them picking up Domi too. Like, I think he had some pretty good points in Chicago this year on a really bad team.
Yeah.
So picking up him for essentially a second and dumping Khudobin, I think, is a tidy piece of business too.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Khudobin was also signed through next year, so Dallas kind of sheds that cap as well.
Yeah, and he's just like he's been stuck in the AHL
he's been
because
hurt.
They can't afford to bring him up is essentially the problem, I think.
Well, that not only that, but also I think that playoff run when he was the starting goalie in their cup run, that really fucked him up in terms of like the latter stage of his career injury wise. So I think he's fallen off a cliff in terms of his performance. I don't know. Dallas gonna have a few kicks of the can at the cup, so maybe this wasn't the year they felt to go at it because they've got some really nice contracts set for their core with Ottinger, Robertson, Heiskanen, and Hintz. So look for them to take bigger shots in following seasons. I'm just happy they didn't trade any guys like Stankoven or Wyatt Johnson. I think those would have been huge mistakes because those are guys that you're going to want on this roster once all of your core players get expensive and towards the final years of those Ben and Sagan contracts. I don't think Dallas really needed to do anything here. They're pretty much a lock to make the playoffs unless they continue losing 5 straight games. I don't know, quiet deadline, but didn't really need to be a noisy one. Detroit, one of our big losers, I think, of the deadline. It sort of came out that it seemed as though Stevie Y wasn't going to buy, but sort of to reward his team's play for sort of sticking around the playoff race. And actually at one point having really good math to make the playoffs, committing to sort of keeping his UFAs, like holding on to Bertuzzi, holding on to I don't know what other UFAs Detroit had, but anyway, just holding on to their assets, and then they drop a back-to-back to Ottawa. Vibes are down, and they end up trading away pretty much everyone. And it was like all right after they signed Larkin. Pretty brutal scene there. Like Larkin in his conference after he signed his extension, breaking into tears because Bertuzzi was traded literally 90 minutes after he signed his extension. They got a first and a second from Vancouver, the first round pick being that of the Islanders from the Bo Horvat trade in exchange for Filip Hronek, who goes to Vancouver. Yeah.
I just want to say that like in their bigger trades here, I don't think they necessarily did bad. Like I think they got actually pretty very good return for Hronek for sure. And a solid return for Bertuzzi, but like that's not really the point.
No,
here.
It's not.
It's that they should be like a team like Ottawa who's making moves to acquire talent to try to make a push right now and not selling off a guy like Hronek, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's just such a weird situation.
Hronek's like 25, 26, signed at 4.4, I think for another year after this one, maybe even 2. I know he's not a rental. They also traded Jakub Vrana for peanuts. That was kind of wild. I know he's been like in the player assistance program. He's had a down year, but that guy was a freaking game breaker when they got him in exchange for Mantha a couple years ago. So that's tough to see. They get a 4th for Sundqvist,
which is a little underwhelming.
It is underwhelming. So I wouldn't say that they had a bad deadline with regards to the assets that they got in the trades, but the fact that they made the trades makes this an L for Detroit.
Such a mixed bag, and we don't have to talk about this too long either, but they were trying to acquire JVR right at the deadline, but couldn't.
Which was weird.
And that would have been the most confusing move of all.
Yeah.
Like, were they just trying to replace Sundqvist with JVR? I know somebody, I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, was speculating that maybe they thought there was an extension, like a short extension that they were looking at for JVR, but like why?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't get it. Now all of a sudden Detroit goes from potentially having good vibes, pushing for a playoff spot. Who knows what's going to happen? Worst case scenario, you get like the 14th pick in the draft. Now you're going to have a depressing, boring, uninteresting final 20 games of the season, and you're going to end up with the 11th overall pick. So yeah, Detroit are losers of the deadline.
Losers.
Edmonton. I know Ryan and I have a little bit different opinions on how this deadline went for Edmonton. They pick up Nick Bjugstad in exchange for Michael Kesselring, and a 2023 third. They get Bjugstad at something I didn't know was possible, below the minimum because of the retention from Arizona. They get Bjugstad as a $450,000 cap hit, which is kind of funny to look at. They also got Mattias Ekholm from the Preds in exchange for Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, a first and a fourth. And they also dumped Puljujärvi. You can kind of loop that Puljujärvi trade in with the Ekholm trade. Consider Puljujärvi a part of the trade going to Nashville because that Ekholm deal doesn't get done without the Puljujärvi deal. I don't know. You like it for Edmonton. Maybe if you want to give a thought or two about that.
Yeah, I don't think they're necessarily huge winners, but I really like the Ekholm trade for them. I think it's a pretty good price. Like, sending back Barrie is really just salary. I think Ekholm is a way better all-around player for their situation than Barrie. Like, their power play is not going to hurt one bit just because they traded Tyson Barrie. I hate when people say that. Like, it's McDavid. Calm down.
They have Evan Bouchard, too, guys.
Yeah, and then, like, Reed Schaefer, I think they just drafted him, right? Or like he's a first round pick, but a very recent one. But they didn't trade they didn't trade Broberg, they didn't trade Borgo. So it's whatever. And then a first was always going to be included, and then Puljujärvi was always going to be included for cap reasons, but it was to Carolina. So I don't know. I think it's a great trade. I love Mattias Ekholm for them. And then I think Nick Bjugstad is a really good value player especially for $450,000. And a third really isn't that like it's a third. So
Schaefer 32nd overall in 2022. So you nailed it. First rounder, recent. I don't know. I like it if Ekholm's a rental. Although if he was a rental, the acquisition price would have been a little less. I don't love the contract. He's old. He's probably making a little bit too much. But at the same time, you kind of got to go for it while you've got McDavid and Draisaitl on these contracts. I just think that there maybe was a better direction for Edmonton to go on in the D sort of in the aspect of acquiring a defenseman. # Erik Karlsson. But so I just like it doesn't really make sense to me because you're looking at you traded Puljujärvi, Barrie, Schaefer, a first and a fourth, essentially for Ekholm. What do you need to add to that package to get Erik Karlsson? Another first? Like, am I wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Do they need Erik Karlsson though?
Yeah, but
we might disagree on this. Like,
yeah, I don't know. We've kind of debated this before. I like Ekholm. He's a good player. I just think Edmonton could have done more. I just don't think they're doing enough with McDavid and Draisaitl is all.
Fair enough.
I like the Ekholm acquisition. I just find it a little bit underwhelming, and I just don't like the contract. But, what are you going to do? It's Ken Holland.
Yeah.
All right, Florida Panthers did absolutely nothing, so we shall move on.
Move on.
To the Los Angeles Kings. Again, we sort of touched on it. They traded away a franchise icon to match salary. Kind of a low blow / scumbag move.
Yeah, we've already touched on that. They made the trade of the day, Mitchell. The trade of the day. Huge blockbuster trade. The Los Angeles Kings. Did
you say Queens? Did you say Queens?
I don't know what happened. Man, I'm just so excited about this trade.
You got mixed between
the Kings. The Kings acquire Zach McEwen from the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for Brendan Lemieux and a 5th-round pick. Like, what a stupid trade.
I think the funniest part of that is that they had to put in throw in a
they got
fifth.
The worst player back, and they threw in a pick.
Yeah, it's kind of very funny. Sorry, I'm just bringing up Eric Portillo. Is it Portillo or Portillo?
Portillo, I think.
Portillo's numbers at Michigan, just because, I don't know, it feels like there's maybe a little, like, he's going to be a good goalie. Like, he's supposed to be. He's had 2 rock star seasons at Michigan. He's having a less than perfect. He's got a 908 save percentage. He had a 930 save percentage last year for Michigan. So I don't know.
I like the move for them. Like, they don't really have much answers in goal right now. Why not?
Yeah, why not? He's 20.
How old is he?
He is 22. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2019.
Why not?
And Buffalo kind of had a glut of goalie prospects, so they sort of capitalized on that. All right, I accidentally just merged my tabs. This is not good. All right.
Do you want to talk about the bigger trade? Just quick second from their side of you.
Which the quick one,
like the Gavrikov one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why isn't?
Because I don't like it.
No.
I don't like.
Why isn't Jacob Chychrun a King? Like, I get
he should be a King.
He should be a Los Angeles King. It's kind of incredible that he's not. Like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
If you're
it
willing,
made way too much sense. If there was any better fit, like Ottawa obviously is a massive fit for Chychrun.
LA was the fit.
If there's any better fit, it's LA because they're looking for that left-handed defenseman.
LA was the better fit, and
yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense to me that they were willing to trade legitimate assets and offload a franchise legend to match salary for these 2 guys. Meanwhile, Jacob Chychrun and what's his name, Karel Vejmelka, you could have gotten those 2 guys, and it would have taken maybe a few extra assets, but it would have been worth it because both guys are signed beyond this season. You just got 2 rentals in Korpisalo and Gavrikov. You would have gotten 2 guys that are cost controlled, fit into your core age wise because Chychrun is 24 and I think Vejmelka is 27, and like they're just better players.
They have one of the better prospect pools in the league. Go throw wicked amount of draft picks at these players. Like, they make way too much sense for your window.
And if you were willing to just dump Jonathan Quick to make this happen, why weren't you was the cap an issue? Were you apparently teams were asking Arizona to retain on Chychrun. If LA is willing to dump Jonathan Quick to match salary, why would they be asking for Chychrun to be retained? I don't get it. I don't get GM sometimes. It bothers me. LA, you get an L for the deadline. All right, moving on to the Minnesota Wild. A bunch of sneaky moves. Obviously, they played of banker at the deadline to get some assets, and they kind of just turned around and used those assets to get a couple players. They might not have been the same pick, but they were sort of the same range of picks. They pick up Marcus Johansson from Washington in exchange for a 2024 third. They get Gustav Nyquist at 50% retained. That's a $2.75 million cap hit from Columbus in exchange for a 2023 fifth rounder.
And like I mentioned, that's more of like a playoff acquisition because he is supposed to be back closer to the end of the regular season.
They get a second and a fifth for Greenway, which is amazing value, I think, for them because they'd been looking to get rid of Greenway for a while. And they traded a fourth for Sundqvist. So just some quick maths here. They picked up a 2023 fifth for retaining on Orlov. They got I forget which year, but they got a fourth from the Leafs for retaining on O'Reilly. They traded away a third to get Johansson. They traded away a fifth for Nyquist, but then they got a second and fifth for Greenway. And then they traded away a fourth.
I love their last 2 trades specifically because it's my understanding that Sundqvist and Greenway are similar players, like huge bodies who haven't just really put it together yet. Or no, Sundqvist I think is 28, so I don't know, but they're bigger bodies that play a similar role. So they flip out Greenway and get a second and a fifth, and bring in like a guy who plays essentially the same role for a fourth. Like it's just it's efficient.
So they played Bayer at the deadline, and then their roster and draft pick net is that they're up a second, they're up a third. No, they're down a third. They're up a second, they're up a fourth, and they're down Greenway, but they also picked up Johansson and Nyquist. Like they acquired picks and players. It's insane.
Like they're up picks, and they're also up Johansson, Sundqvist, Klingberg.
Klingberg too.
We didn't talk about Klingberg yet.
Jesus.
And Nyquist.
They picked up four NHLers in exchange for picks that they basically more or less acquired by brokering trades and Greenway. And it's just a sick deadline for Bill Guerin in Minnesota.
All because they have cap space.
And now, all of a sudden, you've got that $3 million coming off the cap from Greenway, because I think he was signed through next year. You've got these picks that you can keep using to stock the cupboards. Bill Guerin is an elite GM. I really like him. He's good at he was on 32 Thoughts, actually, like the recent episode. I don't know if you've listened to it. It was really good. Really good stuff. Okay, Montreal Canadiens.
All right, we got a lot of teams here left. Let's pick it up.
And we're more than halfway. Okay, it's been over half an hour. Montreal didn't do a lot. Not really worth talking about. We talked about Dadonov already when we did Dallas and on a previous pod. They retained some money on a Nick Bonino trade, but I just can't bring myself to care about a Nick Bonino deadline trade.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And like, the most notable thing to talk about the Montreal Canadiens is the things they didn't end up doing. Like Edmondson didn't go anywhere. Yeah. Hoffman didn't end up going anywhere. Like nobody that kind of had any little bit of value went anywhere except for Dadonov, and it was just for a reclamation project.
A neat little quirk, though, about this Bonino trade, though, I will say, is that San Jose didn't actually retain salary. So San Jose had the player. They had Bonino. They traded Bonino to Montreal, and then Montreal retained half and then sent him to Pittsburgh. So Montreal got it.
So I guess they didn't want to use a retained spot.
I guess so.
It's cool.
It's kind of weird, though, because Bonino's expiring, I believe. Let's see what Nick Bonino's got going on in his contract.
Maybe they just didn't want to pay any money on it.
Yeah, it'd be really weird if he's UFA at the end of the season. Weird one from San Jose to not be willing to retain, but I don't know, unless they had already done so. Oh, wait, maybe they have. Because Minnesota's retaining on Brent Burns and Meyer. Let's go check San Jose's cap sheet. Maybe they couldn't. Because I know they're retaining on Meyer and Burns. I'm trying to think of other trades that they might have retained money on in the past. Nope, just those two. So, yeah, I don't really get it. Because that one was at the deadline, too. So that wasn't even like them trying to keep a spot open just in case something else came in the hour before the deadline. Oh, no. Nashville. Big winners, a lot of picks.
Huge winners.
They somehow scavenged a 2023 second rounder from Pittsburgh for Mikhail Granlund, Ron Hextall. Are you kidding me? Holy moly.
My God. I love what this team did. It looked so bleak. Like, I don't know. And now they just acquired all these futures for players.
Barry Trotz is being set up so nicely.
Oh, it's fantastic. They're getting rid of commitments and getting like positive value back. It's crazy.
They pick up a 2022 first round draftee and a 2023 first rounder from Edmonton. And honestly, given Edmonton in the playoffs, who knows where that pick's going to land? That pick could be in the top 20.
The only part about this trade that I hate from Nashville's part of view is like, why retain 4%? You just waste a retained spot.
Oh yeah, that was so dumb. That was so dumb.
So dumb.
I forget who mentioned how dumb that was. I think maybe it was Shayna.
It was ridiculously dumb.
Maybe it was Shayna, just making fun of Nashville for retaining 4%. Like, why? And that's like a 4-year contract. Like, that's just a waste.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's hard to complain though. They pick up 5 draft picks for Tanner Jeannot, which was a while ago. Underwhelming return on Niederreiter, but again, like they're clearing cap, they're giving themselves a ton of flexibility, and they're getting so many draft picks.
Yeah, and they also did a couple smaller trades that are interesting as well. Like they threw a 7th round pick at Buffalo and got Asplund, who's I think he's 25, hasn't really put anything together. So like he's a young player that like you get a free viewing at him for a 7th round pick. And then they also got Isaac Radcliffe from the Philadelphia Flyers for future consideration. Just another young player, free look. Why not?
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I love the moves from them. That's exactly what a rebuilding team should be doing.
For sure. Jersey, they got Meyer. I'm not reading the trade. I refuse. That thing is too long. And they also acquired Curtis Lazar today for a 4th rounder. Yeah, I mean, we talked about Meyer on the last pod. And
fun fact about the Meyer trade is that it's tied for including the most amount of players in a trade all time with the Phaneuf trade. Ottawa and
9?
Yeah, 9 players. Ottawa and Toronto.
And it's funny too because like I would say 7, 6 of the.
But I think in terms of total assets, it's the biggest trade in NHL history.
Yeah, because there's also 4 picks in addition to those.
Yeah.
But what's funny too though is that like the reason the trade is so big is because San Jose or New Jersey just had to get rid of contracts. Like all the players going from San Jose to New Jersey sort of serve a purpose. 4 out of the 5 players going from New Jersey to San Jose are literally just to max contracts because you can only have 50 contracts in your system.
Yeah, and they lost Scott Harrington the next day on waivers.
Yeah, so whatever. And then they got Lazar. Good for them. Good for Lazar. Get out of Vancouver.
Lazar's $1 million for the next 2 years too, so it's not
bottom 6 guy, not insignificant. Islanders, we've talked about Horvat. That was a long time ago. They also picked up Pierre Engvall in exchange for a 2024 third. Kind of one that fell under the radar in Leafs land because Toronto made like 3 significant trades in the span of an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did it. I don't know if did Toronto have to do this one because of the cap?
Yeah, I think they kind of did, but I don't know why Engvall had to be the sacrifice and just not throw in Kerfoot in some other trade. Yeah. But
I don't know. Weird one. Good for I like it for the Islanders though. They're very clearly trying to sneak into the playoffs so that they can get crushed by either Boston or Carolina. So this will help with that. Okay, Rangers. Weird deadline. I am not even sold on it. I'm not going to lie. Patrick Kane.
They looked weird last night.
Pardon?
They looked weird last night.
They did look weird last night. Patrick Kane looks like a absolute beautiful human being in a Rangers jersey. That boy was meant to wear a Rangers jersey. But man, oh man, did he not fit with that team? He was
at least not on the first night because everyone was forcing everything to this man, and it was the most predictable thing ever.
And he was on PP1 in place of Tarasenko, which is not ideal because you want Tarasenko whipping that puck with Panarin feeding it to him because every single time Panarin touched the puck, he was forcing it to Kane.
I think they went 0 for 7 on the power play. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah, it did not look good at all.
It was not good. Patrick Kane was on the top line with Panarin and Zibanejad. I would imagine that changes very soon because he's not a first-line player anymore on a contender. He's a guy that you want playing with maybe... I don't know. We don't need to do a Patrick Kane analysis right now, but the fit was awkward. Tarasenko has fit in like a glove. The Kane fit looks awkward. It's been one game. Well, don't want to read too far into it.
It's clear, too, that they didn't really want to do both these players. They just were like, screw it, why not? Because we can.
That's the other thing. Is
Kane is forcing his way here because we'll just take him because we can now.
Yeah, but if you're going to do that, don't trade a freaking conditional second rounder that could become a first. Like, they should have absolutely taken the Blackhawks to the woodshed on this. Like, here's your third rounder. Go play. Like, we'll even give you the condition that it becomes a second if we win the cup, so you can have it be the 64th overall pick. Like, I don't know. I don't like that the Rangers traded so much for it. They just made the trade because they could, not because they needed to. He's a very redundant player in that lineup with Tarasenko there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. A lot of big names on that team, though. Holy. Sens.
Yeah.
One word, Chikrin. Not much else. They picked up Patrick Brown today, I guess, for a 6th rounder. Sure, why not?
Massive dub. Like maybe the biggest winner of the deadline, though.
Yeah, they're up there in terms of teams that bought. They're right there. Getting Chikrin's huge. I personally
outside of maybe Nashville. Nashville is massive.
That's why I said out of teams that bought. I liked Nashville's deadline the most out of any team. I would have. I don't know if I were to nitpick. I would say I wanted to see Ottawa get maybe a better 4th line center, get Gambrell out of that lineup.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know. I don't know who Patrick Brown is, but whatever. Don't care.
Sure,
it doesn't really matter. They got Chikrin. That's all they needed to do. I'm happy with it. Sens fans are happy with it, and they are absolutely coming for that second wildcard spot. It's going to be an exciting race.
You can, if you want more on that one, go check out our Chikrin trade reaction that was released yesterday.
Nice little free advertising there. Philly, boring. Who cares? They get Brandon Lemieux. The only thing that makes this deadline a win for them is if Brandon Lemieux chooses to wear number 66. All right, next is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Can we just roast them too for not trading JVR?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what a poverty franchise.
Take a 5th.
Okay, we can move on.
Take a 5th. Yeah. Who cares? Just trade guys. You suck. Like, come on. Whatever. Okay, Pittsburgh.
Brutal.
A lot of bad trades here. Holy. What are they doing, man?
My God.
They trade.
I can understand wanting to go all in for Crosby, but these are not the guys.
These are all in moves for guys that are not all in worthy.
No.
They traded. Oh my God, what did they trade? They traded a 5th and a 7th for Bonino. They traded a 2nd.
Oh yeah, and just
Granlund.
keep in mind they already have one of the worst future pools in the NHL, and they're throwing draft picks at mid to low 30s players who they think are still useful but are not.
And they traded a 2024 3rd for Kulikov. I don't know. I guess. Mikael Granlund makes $5 million for the next 2 years after this one. Go look at one of his player cards. That's all I have to say. All right.
And they traded a 2nd for him.
San Jose, underwhelming return for Meyer. I think that's kind of the consensus. They sort of did the Ottawa Senators Erik Karlsson trade approach where they get quantity over quality. So maybe they learned from a past mistake and try to sort of be on the other end of that stick. I don't know. Makumadulin is a big piece. That was a tough one, but I think I ended up getting it.
It's kind of close.
Shakir Makumadulin?
Yeah, Shakir Muhammad. I think it starts more like Muhammadulin.
There's the K is silent?
Yeah.
Okay. They got a 1st. If the pick is top, that's not going to happen. So they get a 1st from New Jersey. I'm so sick of reading. Oh, they could. Okay, the 2024 2nd could become a 1st if Jersey makes the.
Oh, this was the one that was the 2 years condition.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the condition
that I was thinking of.
If New Jersey makes the 2023 Eastern Conference Final and Meyer plays in 50% of the games, so unless Meyer gets hurt, or if New Jersey makes the 2024 Eastern Conference Final, the pick in 2024 becomes a 1st. That's a legitimate condition. New Jersey could do that. They could do that this 100%. Year. They legitimately have a shot. They could absolutely do that. And if the pick is top 10, New Jersey can move it to 2025. Not going to happen. Okay.
And Zutterlund is an okay young player. Muhammad Julin he's a decent prospect, but he's not anywhere close to what they thought they were going to get. So it's an okay package. It's solid value, but it's nowhere close to what you should get for.
They got a couple late round picks for Bonino, as we just mentioned. They traded away a 3rd for a flyer at that Harvard prospect, Henry Thrun. But the one I really want to address is this weird trade with Tampa. So, as we've learned over the past few years, you don't trade with Tampa. You just don't trade with Tampa. So if you're Mike Greer and you hear the Tampa Bay Lightning call you and say, hey, we want to give you this NHL player, Vladislav Nemesnikov, in exchange for this guy that you probably haven't even heard of that plays for you, Michael Asimov.
No, we are top 1% hockey fans, and there's no shot I've ever heard of this guy, and I guarantee you have either.
Have you seen his player card, though?
It's ridiculous.
He is a freaking analytics darling, and watch. He's going to play 4 or 5 minutes for this Tampa team. They're going to sign him to like a 6-year deal worth $1 million a year, and he's going to score like 10 goals a year or something.
He has some of the most, like, I think he has some of the best defensive prospect, or not prospect, metrics in the game. Like, I wish I prepped to have his card in front of me, but it's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure if I remember it, his player card, it's like pretty average in most categories. And then there's a few where it's just like off the charts near the top percentile. Yeah.
He's going to
like, it's specialty player off the charts.
Specialty player. And like a guy that's going to fit with this team. Like he's going to play. He's going to play games for Tampa. He's going to play games. And I just don't really get making the trade from San Jose's perspective.
And then
it's weird.
And then they flipped Nemestikov for a fourth, but
which
is giving Tampa their guy for a fourth.
I mean, if San Jose wasn't getting offered a fourth anywhere else for Eyssimont, then I like it.
I guess so.
But I mean, it's just weird. Like, if I've got Breezeball calling me out of nowhere asking for a random guy that's played 20 games for me, I'm like, wait, why do you want him? And then I'd hang up and then call, go and investigate. But I don't know.
Yeah, last thing on the Sharks is this is the fourth time that Vladislav Nemestikov has been traded for a 4th-round pick at the deadline, which is hilarious.
Nice. Okay, moving on to the St. Louis Blues. You'll notice that we just skipped Seattle because they didn't do anything, which is boring because they are awesome and they have tons of picks and cap space. So, I don't know. Seattle should have done something small at least. They didn't do anything.
Lame.
St. Louis, they've got their first rounders from the Tarasenko and Ryan O'Reilly trades. You love to see it. They got Zach Dean for Barbashev. And they picked up Jakub Vrana from Detroit in exchange for nothing. And I love this deal for St. Louis. You take a sort of rehabilitation project. He's 26 years old. As recently as 2019, he was lighting it up for Detroit. Let me check his card.
You can tell what they're doing here too, because they did the same thing with Kapanen.
Yeah,
they're trying to kind of revive a couple young guys' careers here that have proven to, have some sort of offensive touch in the past. I don't know. I like it. They're low risk projects.
So I'm now realizing that Vrana barely played for Detroit. So they acquired him from Washington in 2020, 2021 at midseason. I imagine around the deadline. He scored 11 goals in 11 games for them, 11 points, 8 of them goals in 11 games for Detroit that season. Last year, 2021, 2022, he put up 19 points in 26 games, most of the year spent injured. And then this year, he only played 5 games for Detroit, putting up 2 points, spending a lot of the season either injured or in the player assistance program. But the player has a reputation. St. Louis didn't have to give up anything to get him. I like the gamble. Hopefully he plays and gets his career back on track because that would be a really nice piece for St. Louis to add to their retool on the fly.
Yeah, and I just love what they did. Get a bunch of future assets. I really thought they were going to be the team that kind of sneaks in and grabs Chychrun, and I would have loved that for them. Yeah. But I still really like what they did. So we'll see if they still try to flip one of those maybe in the summer. Tampa.
As we mentioned, picked up Michael Eyssimont from the San Jose Sharks in exchange for Nemesnikov. They also traded away 16 draft picks for Tanner Jeannot. So we've already discussed that, but just for a reminder, they traded away Cal Foote, a 2023 third, 2023 fourth, 2023 fifth, 2024 second, and a conditional top 10 protected 2025 first. Not 16 draft picks, but might as well have been. Do you consider Tampa a winner or a loser of this deadline?
I think I would go loser.
Loser, okay.
Yep, I think I would. People always credit Tampa for, sure, they got their guy, and maybe they did. Sure, they can go on and it's moot point if they go on and win a cup because they just know what they're doing, sure. But we can't just assume that, and the opportunity costs, the psychology around trading away all those draft picks is right. This is their window. you trade futures to go all in.
I don't like the
now.
rationale.
I like the rationale. I hate the execution.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of how
it's just way overpriced. Like, who are you bidding against?
Yeah.
Nobody's paying that much for Tanner Jeannot.
Yeah.
And you could have, like, I don't know, you could have traded all those assets if you're going to trade them anyways for several pieces that help your team. That's not just Tanner Jeannot, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get the rationale. I like what you said, though, about you get the rationale, you don't like the execution.
Yeah.
Because the trying to justify trading 5 draft picks for at this point in the season so far, an inconsequential player to the Nashville Predators season. I mean, all of a sudden, like, where does that end? Like, why not trade 7 draft picks? Why not trade 10 draft picks for a player? Like, if those picks aren't going to be contributing, like, at what point does it end? You can sort of you can convince me if it's like a distant first that maybe, because I would have considered it surprising just to see the first round pick get dealt for Jeannot, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know. Everyone's shocked by the price and then trying to rationalize it because it's Tampa, and I just hate that argument. I really don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. Toronto, busiest team ahead of the deadline. They bring in 6 new players. A lot of it we've covered already on the pod, but basically in is Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, Eric Gustafsson.
I think we've only talked about Ryan O'Reilly trade. Like, I don't think we've mentioned any of the others yet.
Did we not do McCabe and Lafferty?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay. So, in general, then, in terms of deadline acquisitions, they bring in Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari, Eric Gustafsson, Luke Schenn, Jake McCabe, I almost said Brian McCabe, and Sam Lafferty. McCabe and Lafferty coming over from Chicago along with conditional sort of late-round picks in exchange for Joey Anderson, Pavel Gogolev, and a conditional 2025 first that is top 10 protected, as well as a 2026 second. Huge trade. Bit of a surprise for sure. McCabe at 50% retained is freaking sick. $2 million for him for 2 years after this one.
I love this trade for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I don't think we've talked about it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So do you want to give a sec on it?
Yeah, I think this is a slam dunk for the Maple Leafs. Like, everyone is so worried about Dubas going out and trading all these draft picks, and he's not going to be there next year. McCabe is now in that system for $2 million for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, that is a slam dunk. You give up a first-round pick for that all day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And they're praising, the same people are praising Tampa.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, calm down.
No, it's just biased people. And then shit hit the fan. In the span of, I want to say like an hour, in the span of like an hour, Toronto trades away Rasmus Sandin in a shocking move to get back a first-round pick to sort of try to restock that cupboard. They also get Eric Gustafsson. So basically, they shed $600,000 in cap space, get basically the same player, just a bit older, but they get back some draft value, and now they don't have to worry about a contract negotiation with both Liljegren and Sandin in a year and a half. Because let's be real, Sandin was going to be the 7th or 8th defenseman come playoff time, even though he shouldn't have been.
Yep.
He would have been.
He should not have been, but Dubas took advantage of the situation and killed the asset management.
Exactly. So. The Leafs also, pretty much immediately after, traded away Pierre Engvall to the Islanders in a cap move. It was necessary to accommodate the previous trades. They get a 2024 third. Again, sort of restocking that cap or that pick cupboard that had previously been emptied from the Ryan O'Reilly and Jake McCabe trades. And then they turned around and traded away a third for Luke Schenn. I'm going to go have a peek at the Leafs draft picks.
It is pretty bare.
It is bare, but it's not as bare as it was 3 days ago. So 4 days ago. So they've got Boston's first, which is probably going to be like in the 30s. They have their own first next year, nothing in 2025. They've got the Islanders third in 2024. Their own third, no second, third, or fourth this year. So I don't know. They did a decent job of getting some picks back, and I trust Toronto's sort of drafting ability. They get the 4th and 5th rounders from Chicago kind of similar to what Tampa did in the Hagel trade last year, getting 2 fourths when they traded away 2 firsts. So
I like it because he kind of did extremes on both sides, right? He bought, like, he doubled down twice, almost 3 times, but he also acquired a future first and what's the other part of it there? McCabe for the next 2 years.
Yep.
Like, those are future moves that help this team as well.
For sure.
I love it.
For sure. Really good stuff from Dubas yet again. No surprise. Officially, if this team loses, it is not his fault.
No.
Vancouver, oh my God. All right, where do we start? So we've discussed Horvat on the pod. We've discussed Kravitsov on the pod. They got a third for Luke Shen. That was going to be the price all along. And hilariously, Vancouver decides, hey, you know what? Why not? Let's trade away the mid-first rounder that we just got from the Islanders when we traded away our captain to bring in Philip Hronik to help us with our cup contending status for the next 2 years, and then he's going to walk. I mean, why? Why did we do that? Literally, like, why did they do that? They all, not to mention trading away a second as well, which is going to be like the 36th overall pick in the draft.
Because this management team is obsessed with the idea of a retool when this team desperately needs a full-ass rebuild.
Yeah.
Like, it drives me crazy. There's a report today that they did not trade JT Miller because they only got an offer of draft picks back when they wanted a solid centerman back. Like, are you kidding me? I'm going to lose my mind. You got offered future value draft picks for JT Miller and you didn't take it?
They got actual value. Like, they got JT Miller's a negative value asset right now.
Oh, 100%.
His contract hasn't started 100%. And it runs 7 years. And that guy fucking doesn't skate on his own side of the red line.
You have an opportunity to undo a massive mistake here in, like, one move, and it's so easy. And you're like, no, I want the money back. I want the player back.
San Jose didn't trade Erik Karlsson. Let's circle back to the Sharks. Both of these teams, like, what the fuck?
Oh, yeah. Dumb move.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Like, I still think San Jose is going to be able to trade Erik Karlsson in the offseason. Yeah, he'll have the same trade protection. He'll be coming off of a Norris. Like, he's going to win the Norris. He'll have the same trade protection. If he doesn't win the Norris, I'm going to be so mad. He'll have the same trade protection. Nothing's changing in that regard. So it's going to be pretty much the same scenario, just with an extra $10 million that teams can go over and a lot more time to do things. Vancouver, JT Miller, I'm pretty sure, is going to have a no-move clause once his contract kicks in on July 1st.
Yep, this was their one chance. Well, I guess they could do the draft, but I pray to God that no GM is dumb enough. Like, it sounds like it may have been Pittsburgh, which would have been even funnier than what they did.
That would have been hilarious.
I don't know, man. I don't get it. Like, it's so mind-boggling.
I can't believe the Vancouver Canucks traded away their first-round pick, or the Islanders' first-round pick. And their second. That second rounder is legitimately going to be the 35th pick in the draft. It's going to be a pseudo first rounder.
They're trying to do what, like, the Blues are probably going to do successfully.
Yeah.
Like, they're shipping out, like, a few pieces and trying to bring back young talent. But the young talent isn't it. For what you paid. Like, it's not even close. And you should not be bringing in, like, 24-year-olds right now. You should be doing a full-ass rebuild.
Hronek's not 24.
Oh, is he not 24?
I think he's 26.
Oh, okay.
So that's worse.
Anyways.
It's worse.
Worse.
Let me just confirm that. Yeah, okay, he's 25, turning 26 very soon. Okay. Vancouver did what everyone wanted St. Louis to do with Chychrun, except the Walmart version with a better draft pick for a worse player.
Literally.
Vancouver could have had
way less worse position to do it.
Vancouver could have, and being a worse team with, okay. And Vancouver could have been going into this draft with potentially, depending on the lottery, which I'm kind of thinking might get rigged, is like you could have a shot. Like, you're gonna have a top 5 pick likely. You would have had a top 15 pick with the Islanders likely. You would have had a top 35 pick with your own second, 2 thirds, and 3 fourths. That's not to mention potentially what they could have gotten for trading JT Miller. And I wouldn't be surprised if a GM out there would have traded a first for JT Miller. Like,
oh, 100%.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Have you seen the trades that Ron Hextall has been making? That guy would have traded a first for JT Miller. I'm so curious to know what picks were offered for JT Miller. And, like, I really am curious to know if the center, like, what center was Vancouver hoping for in exchange for JT Miller?
I don't know.
Like, who the
does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. But I want to know like who would they have been holding out for? Like, if it was oh no, we're not doing this trade because you're not offering us fucking Joe Schmo that you drafted in the 3rd round 3 years ago. Like, god damn it, stupid.
They wanted somebody to play in the lineup, and it's ridiculous.
Oh my god, it's so nuts. Whatever. Okay. Vegas. They got Jonathan Quick. They didn't give up anything for him. I don't know how they fit him in. Although I guess they had a bunch of space with Mark Stone. They get Teddy Bluger from Pittsburgh in exchange for a 3rd. All right. Not sure why Pittsburgh's doing that, but whatever. I like it for Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh did like 3 other things to make themselves better. Yeah. So why are we trading Bluger?
Teddy Bluger is like... Okay, they dumped Bluger to bring in the players that they brought in, but the players that they brought in are marginal, if not worse.
Right.
Upgrades.
Hextall,
so this
bad.
is Pittsburgh.
Hextall is the new... He's reaching, like, bad status.
Bad.
Okay, Washington. Sneaky, awesome deadline for this. Not even sneaky. Awesome deadline for this team. So we've sort of hammered home the Orlov deal. Great trade. They get Boston's first and that. They turn around, flip the Boston first and an expiring contract for a guy that had no future with the team for a 22-year-old analytic darling, Rasmus Sandin, who you now have on your blue line with the likes of John Carlson and Nick Jensen for the next however many years you want because he's 22. You get a 3rd for Johansson. You get a 2nd for Eller. I love this deadline. Soft sell with their expiring contracts. Getting Sandin, though, sick work by Brian McClellan.
Yeah. Yeah, they were one of those teams where it's like this could be a disaster going into the offseason. Like half of their team is UFAs or were UFAs. Almost their entire decor other than John Carlson were / are UFAs. It just could have been a complete turnover without getting much. But they decided to sell at almost the right time. Got a really nice package for Orlov. Got a bunch of futures back, and like you said, they basically swap out Gustafsson for Rasmus Sandin, who is going to be a great defenseman in the league given the opportunity, and he will get it there now. So
I'm really curious to see what else Washington does, because all of a sudden they have 3 second rounders in 2025 and 3 third rounders in 2024. They have, what do they have locked up next year?
Resigning Jensen is a really nice move.
It is a good move.
I think he's a really solid defenseman.
They've got they've already have $74 million tied up in next year's cap, but they've got 16 players signed. So there's some wiggle room there to fill out that roster.
Oh my god, okay. I forgot one thing about Vancouver. I want to throw one more shot.
Sure.
They're already over the cap for next year.
Oh my god, yeah, I forgot. Oh my god, yeah. Wow. That's insane.
Okay.
That's insane.
Oh
my hilarious. God. All right. So yeah, Washington, a lot of different places to go. Their longest contract on the books right now is Dylan Strome. Previously, it was Alexander Ovechkin, who runs through 2025, 2026. I'd imagine this team is in for a absolute teardown after that, assuming Ovechkin retires, because he will have broken Gretzky's record and will be 41 at that point. So in the meantime, it's going to be all short-term stuff for Washington. Could be a team to watch in the offseason as they look to maybe sort of come back a little bit stronger next year after sort of a down year where they're going to miss the playoffs. I
one last thing on Washington. I still fully expect them to kind of bring in like currently good players in the offseason as long as Ovechkin's there. Like, I fully expect them to try to be competitive.
Oh, yeah, they'll be going for it for the next 3 seasons. But then after that, it's full blow, like, if they're smart, unless they come across some gems or something, like if something crazy happens, but...
They're doing what Pittsburgh should be doing.
They're doing what Pittsburgh's trying to do, they're doing what Pittsburgh should be doing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I was thinking...
Pittsburgh's just doubling down on old players.
Yeah. Really bad. And last but not least, Winnipeg, very underwhelming deadline. They get Niederreiter for a second, which was a nice piece of business. But then all they really did since then, which is now over a week ago, was pick up Vlad Nemesnikov in exchange for a fourth. I don't know. Not too much to ride home about there. What was this? You said the fourth time Nemesnikov's been traded for a fourth rounder?
Yeah, he tied the record for trades at a deadline at 4, and every single time has been a fourth round pick.
That's awesome. GMs in the league, if you're looking for a fourth round pick in a given draft, go sign your boy Vladdy Nemesnikov.
Like, does he just keep getting 1-year contracts?
Yeah, he's been bouncing.
Is that what happens?
He was with Tampa for a while. And then I want to say he went to the Rangers, and then I don't know.
Well, he was on Ottawa during one of those rebuilds.
Yeah, he was there for a bit, and then he got traded that year too. I don't know. And then he was with, I want to say he was maybe with Nashville for a bit. I have no idea.
No clue.
Whatever. Yeah, kind of a boring.
Yeah,
one.
Winnipeg didn't make a huge splash, but like Niederreiter for a second is awesome. Nemesnikov for a fourth is okay. Like, they added to their forward group, which they needed to do.
This is also a team that I'm not terribly confident in, so maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff felt the same way, that they didn't quite deserve a big investment, especially given the short-term outlook of this team. Like, they could have a lot of players looking to bolt soon. So
And going into the deadline, they've kind of been sliding a bunch, too.
Yeah, so. that too. That's kind of ties into the fact that maybe Cheveldayoff isn't very high on the group and didn't feel necessary to invest in a group that he doesn't see going far anyway. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway would have to be the sheer lack of impact moves made by Western Conference teams.
Yeah.
Like, what a...
Yeah, there was borderline none.
Like...
Literally. Can you think of one?
I can't think of a super significant one. I mean, like
other than Minnesota kind of bringing in a bunch of players.
Yeah, but none of those were big. Like, they're all small moves. There was no single big move in the West. It's kind of crazy. It's like maybe Ekholm was the biggest move, but even then he stayed in the West. There were no like big East to West like it was constantly for the Eastern Conference. Yeah, I don't know. It's really unfortunate that the league is set up the way it is in terms of the fact that the 6 best teams in the league right now are on the same conference and are going to completely rough shit each other through the first 3 rounds. And then knowing the NHL get absolutely plastered by like Vegas or Colorado or something because they will have had a super easy path playing like the likes of like Seattle and a Minnesota or something in the first 2 rounds. Just teams that are more closer to average than they are to elite. But how long are we running right now? We're getting there.
We are at 1:20.
Oh, damn. All right. We are going to wrap up this pod. Ryan, unless you have anything else to add, deadline pods usually run long, so we will not apologize. Hopefully it wasn't too boring to listen to. Maybe you learned a thing or two about the deadline that you missed. Tough to keep up with. And yeah, I don't think there's too much else to add. So maybe if you want to hit that outro.
I will absolutely hit that
outro. The playoff race is on. Deadline's over. No more trades. And hopefully you're happy with your team's performance at the deadline. I know Vancouver fans aren't.